We are honored to introduce our three guest speakers to discuss the theme of LGBTQI+ refugees in progressive countries. Khookha McQueer, a Tunisian feminist artist and LGBTQI+ advocate. Khookha is known to be one of the first Tunisian trans women to be publicly known. Khookha took part, along with other CSOs, in the implementation of the first terminology guide of gender adapted to the Tunisian context. She explores the different challenges that the LGBTQI+ community is facing, especially in patriarchal societies. Musa Al-shadeedi, an Iraqi writer and critic on sexuality and body politics in many Arabic-speaking platforms, such as Qal, Receive 22, Mansour, and Hiber. Musa has been in exile since 2012 from his mother country and lives currently in Amman, working as the Arabic editor of My Kali magazine since 2017. Musa has published 3 books. Zahir Ali, a Kurdish human rights activist based in the Netherlands and founder of Yaksani, an initiative focused on advocating for LGBTQI+ rights in the Kurdish region. Ali delivered a global pride speech on June 27, 2020, where he criticized the Kurdish regional government for an operation which detained LGBTQI+ people in Solomania. And here is the host of the WOMENTUM Digital Saloon, Chaima Bouhlel. Harvard graduate Chaima is a regular commentator on current affairs, politics, and public policy matters in Tunisian media and a civil society activist.
Welcome everyone to the third Digital Saloon as part of the WOMENTUM project that is led by the LEAD initiative. My name is Chaima Bouhlel and I am very happy to be moderating today's event. As per the previous events, we aim to zoom onto topics that are related to defending human rights in the MENA region by providing a platform for defenders themselves to speak in depth about their own experiences and bring more insight. We will also be giving the floor to partners of the LEAD initiative to also share their own perspective throughout this event. More details on this topic are in this video.
In many societies, LGBTQI+ communities undergo persecution and discrimination. They are victims of growing violence in different forms, being subject to intimidation, threats, and attacks. These are some of the reasons why they seek asylum in different countries in hope of pursuing life with dignity. Nevertheless, LGBTQI+ refugees still undergo other types of pressure in progressive countries. They are marginalized and rejected. They live in fear and uncertainty while continuing their search for a new identity that will shape their lives. Since many decades, several movements have risen around the world seeking to bring justice to the LGBTQI+ communities and to the LGBTQI+ refugees specifically, from the resist marches to the pride parades. The protests and manifestations in support of the LGBTQI+ communities are countless in all corners of the world, calling for acceptance, equality, and justice. This is why, in the third edition of the WOMENTUM Digital Saloon, we are giving the floor to our high-level guests and partners of LGBTQI+ grassroots movements to tell their stories and to understand together the paradigms behind the different aspects of living as an LGBTQI+ refugee or as an LGBTQI+ individual seeking asylum.
Welcome back, everyone. I am honored to be joined by 3 amazing speakers who are joining from 3 different countries and providing 3 different perspectives. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Musa, who will be talking to us about the LGBTQI+ refugees seeking asylum, as he wrote several articles about this topic. Musa, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm so honored to be a part of this event. I'm honored to thank you for having me. Uh, okay, I prefer to start talking about this subject from my personal experience. I'm an Iraqi. I lived in Baghdad during the occupation and invasion after 2003. And in 2012, um, the, the, the situation in Iraq, I think it is familiar because it's all over media. But in 2012, the extremism that was portrayed in the in the radical militias, religious ones, who took over the Iraqi streets after 2003, decided to commit crimes and to kill queer people. And I'm using queer, not gays, because it's more about the look than the real sexual practices, maybe. Everyone who do not fit in the normativity of what is man and what is heteronormative was in danger in a way or another. So they killed 100 queer people in only 1 week. And I was really scared. I was studying accountants at that time in Baghdad, and I decided to leave because it was the end of my relationship to the city, apparently. And I didn't have any other option except leaving, so I went to Amman, to Jordan, the capital of Jordan, and I went to the UN to seeking asylum, obviously, and the process was easy in a way, but not like on a psychological level. It's really hard to go to someone you don't know and just tell them about your like a secret that even your family do not know about, and it's really hard emotionally. But the papers, the process was kind of easy. And I did the first interview, then they told me to wait, and I waited for 6 months. And during these 6 months, I was researching and reflecting and trying to understand who is responsible for what I'm suffering, for my pain, for me being exiled from my country. And at the same time, I was having friends here in Amman and creating my own circles, which is mostly queer people. And so yeah, at that time, I started to understand that, and I started to read and to realize that the responsibility is like the West, the US-led invasion when they came to Iraq in 2003. And I have like some quotes maybe can help me to not be someone who's just saying what he thinks, but also I have evidence that what I think is the reality. For example, Scott Long, in his report to the Human Rights Watch in 2009, titled "They Want Us Exterminated," he documented the violations against queer people in Iraq by the militias and the government too, and said that the US-led invasion and the occupation government supported the militias sometimes. Also, in the same year, the American charge d'affaires, Patricia Buttons, said that we have, I'm quoting, we have no evidence that the Iraqi government security forces are in any way involved with these militias. She was talking about the queer killings in Baghdad in 2009 and in 2012. John Fleming, the public affairs officer, the American one, who is related to the Near East affairs, said homosexuality is not a crime in Iraq, and also said, frankly, there are other issues they are concerned, talking about the Iraqi people, concerned about, like basic survival, getting food and water. It's a luxury for the average Iraqi to worry about homosexuality. So what I felt at that time regarding this statement and opinion, I'm reading and I'm discovering that those who were the reason why I can't live in my country can't be the savior. And the UN told me that the US is the only country I can go to. And at the same time, I was creating friends, and I started to feel comfortable, and I came out to my family, and they accepted me. So I had the privilege to stay here in Jordan. So I decided to reject the asylum after they called me and told me that they accepted my case. So then this is my relationship.
Are kind of proof that what I was living is true, and it's nothing that we can doubt. And this is something I'm going to get back to you on, because perhaps that's the reason why writing is such an important part of how you defend individual rights and basic human rights that are definitely not a luxury, as maybe some would describe, unfortunately. So I thank you for that, Musa, and I'll get back to you to hear more about the importance of writing. Next, I'll give the floor to Noor the Wedi, who's joining us from Tunisia. Definitely from a different context, but perhaps there's more to explore there, as she is an international relations student, but also the project assistant at Adli. She will tell us more about what she does and the organization that she works with does to defend individual rights and liberties, and specifically LGBTQI plus persons. So Noor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chaima. I'd like to start by saying that I'm delighted to be part of this session and to be able to gain insight on the guest speakers and their causes. This is really important to talk about. Such issues need to be addressed, whether we like it or not. I guess the best way I can intervene is by bringing attention to a broad project of ours in collaboration with organizations such as DAMJ and ASF. And it is a project in the context of the Committee for Individual Liberties. It is called Twinsa Kifkom, which means Tunisians just like you. And through it, LGBTQ plus individuals can get legal and social assistance tailored specifically to their needs. It also works for the transformation of thought required for the community's acceptance by the Tunisian population. It is important for me to talk about this project on such a large platform in case any LGBTQ plus individuals in Tunisia who need help and don't know how to get it. They need to know that there is a way that they can get help, and they are not alone in their fight for their liberties and their right to be themselves.
Here, Jiyar, and he will be discussing the systemic racism and homophobia that LGBTQI plus refugees undergo in like progressive countries, or so-called progressive countries. We'll hear more about that. So Jiyar, hello and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I think I would like to start off by what is going on in our countries, and I come from Iraq too as well, and I do relate to what my colleague previously said about what's happening with the militias. And also, when ISIS was around, we've been through a lot. The LGBT community has truly been one of the most marginalized groups in the region. And the sad thing about this is that we are systematically oppressed, so we are censored. The government does not actually report on how many cases of violence and murder are committed against the LGBT community. And they're hiding this, the truth that our society is deeply homophobic, and a lot of LGBT people face prosecution because of their sexuality from the international community and CSOs, which makes the work of the activists very tough, because to have proper advocacy for the community, you need an actual great context analysis to see what's going on in the region. But when the government does not assist in this area, then you are left on your own to figure things out. And for example, like even the government is participating in suppressing the LGBT community. For example, in 2020, on May 17th, if I remember correctly, the EU embassy raised the LGBT pride flag in Baghdad, and it caused a massive backlash against the embassy, to the point where politicians were calling that they be expelled from the country, so their diplomats be sent back and deported to their own countries, and the embassy be closed. And things went as far that Muqtada al-Sadr, which is a prominent politician, came on TV and actually compared homosexuality to incest, and called it a paraphilia. And this further actually angered our community, and caused the militia to actually target the LGBT community for murder and assault. And back then I was working for an organization called Rasan, and we monitored that the rise of what we call digital jihadists, is that they went on, for example, applications like Grindr, they checked the likes of the queer pages on Facebook, and checked who followed queer accounts on Twitter and all of that, and try to actually send messages to these people and make them reveal their own identities. So then they would provide this information to different militias, and then they would harm them. And not to mention the media representation, which is terrible. According to a report by Iraqi, 95% of the time media covers topics related to LGBT, they use queerphobic words, and only a fraction of the time LGBT speakers have, comparing to others who are actually not in the community. So the community has less time to speak and be represented. And all of this, obviously, along with a lot of other things, has led to the LGBT community feeling hopeless, hence the mass migration that we see to European and American countries, or rather, let's say, the first world countries, because it became so frustrating to the point that you cannot have a normal life, you cannot operate normally anymore, and then so you seek somewhere where you can actually be yourself without the fear of being prosecuted for who you are. But then again, when we come to the first world countries, we have another problem, which is racism oftentimes that we face. You kind of get away from one issue and then you walk right into another issue, unfortunately. And oftentimes I am in a very small village right now in the Netherlands, called Pay in Echt, and whenever I walk on the streets, I get looked up and down by drivers, by people who are just biking around, or people just are walking around, and these people sometimes are just white, blonde people, and I feel, even though it may not come from a point of racism, I just feel like somehow you feel alienated, you feel different, you feel like, oh, I don't belong, you know? And I think that this is a serious issue for the LGBT community, because our whole lives we have been under so much pressure, and then when we think we're finally safe, we're not really.
Absolutely. And Jiyar, we're going to get back to your own experience and to more on what you're doing with Yexani, and it's very important to focus on this, especially for our viewers, that sometimes we think that seeking asylum will create, this new perfect environment, but we need to take into consideration that it is difficult in its own way, in the own context that where a member finds him or her self. And I think we have Yuba Dharif from Morocco, who will tell us more about what kind of racism that LGBTQI plus refugees undergo and how it impacts their own well-being through the work of Roots Lab for Gender and Development. Yuba, welcome.
Thank you so much, dear Shaima. Actually, today's subject made me reflect about how I should feel within my country and the confusion that may happen to people in order to want to venture abroad and seek to live abroad. So today morning, I was trying to reflect, and I wrote a note to myself, but also to my country. And I would love to share some with you. Dear Morocco, I hope my message finds you a less homophobic and a more free country. I am one of your siblings talking to you. I want to let you know that your people hurt each other based on their gender and all other forms of expressions. If you are different, you may face a problem, two or many. I live within you. I see discrimination and stigma in you. I'm not feeling free in you. People are living, and we should together try to break the cycle of a daily life struggle. However, I believe it is not the end yet. I am praying for that at least. A day where all people will be free to express themselves, show themselves and feel accepted for who they are. Because if people feel free, they give more. I love you, Morocco. I know you deserve more. I know you are seeking for more. But you are not ready yet. You are not ready yet to invest in all your human resources without discrimination. Your people want you to remain the way you are. They want you to remain in their comfort zone and you let them be. They are doing everything to stop you from moving forward, but you are seeing nothing. Remember that I am one of your siblings who loves you so much. I love you, my beautiful country. So just please have mercy on yourself and push people out of their comfort zones. Thank you so much actually for the opportunity, and thank you for letting me share in my opportunity.
Thank you, Yuba. And that was definitely something that is obviously extremely sincere and straight from the heart, and definitely resonates with many who are watching us, including our guests today. So thank you for that. That came straight from Morocco. Musa, I'm moving back to you to move forward or dig deeper in the issue of writing and documenting our opinions and what we go through. And how important was writing for you as a tool to defend LGBTQI plus rights or push for certain messages that you would like to be translated into a reality? The floor is yours, Musa.
Thank you very much. Actually, writing was first of all, a very good way for healing and a very good way to feel that I'm taking back control over the reality. You know, sometimes feeling that that you don't control anything in your reality is very hard and harmful mentally. So writing helped me to express what I'm feeling and what I want to say to the world, and to feel that I'm heard, you know. So yeah, I started writing since 2016. I am a writer in My Kali magazine since 2017, and then I became the Arabic editor in 2018. So I had the chance to work with many queer writers and feminist writers about so many things. Some of them are from the region, living in the region. Some of them are in diaspora and refugees and asylum seekers. So I had the chance to not only understand my own experience through writing and words, but also through the I had the chance to know the experiences of others and to try as much as possible to know what they felt and to also work with them on how they could express these feelings and these experiences in the best way. And I think this is a very weak point in the media and the mainstream media all over the world. It is so patriarchal, so it does not take a queer, feminist, intersectional, anti-colonial, anti-racist perspective in dealing with the events and the news and how to criticize what the politicians saying or what the government's doing, you know. And I think that's why there is no enough queer voices, no enough refugee voices in these media platforms. And that's what I really like about my work, that I'm working with those people to be able to listen to their voices on the platforms publicly. I think the most disturbing thing for me in media, and the thing that I always wanted to talk about and make it clear, this binary between East and West, and how media in general, and specifically the white Western media, do cover the experiences of queer people in the region as a very traumatic experiences always and every time, from a racist, Islamophobic perspective, not to show reality, not to open a conversation of finding solutions, of supporting those people in their struggle against the authorities at all. But at the same time, they portray the experience of the refugees and asylum seekers in the West, in the white world, as a paradise. They can hold hands in the streets, they have the rainbow flag in the streets, and they are living the happily ever after, which is also wrong. It's not, it might be true in some cases, but we can't generalize it and make it this is the mainstream in the media, because that's then we are neglecting and deleting the pain of those refugees, and also neglecting the pain and the struggle of the LGBT people in these countries, who are the citizens of these countries, even white people. Like, for example, in Canada, which is one of the we portray it as one of the best countries for LGBT people. 40% of the homeless people are LGBT, and it is related, the reason related to their sexuality or gender expression. So we can't neglect all of that and all of these painful experiences and say, well, West is a paradise for LGBT refugees.
And it could also, Musa, like, it's the importance of this reality is definitely to challenge the narrative that is definitely being disseminated, which reduces the pain and perhaps it gives a false impression on the countries that refugees go to. But it can also demean the struggle that LGBTQI plus communities face before seeking asylum. And it's as if that's the whole point, is to go to this paradise, but not necessarily to escape hell. I mean, and that's a different, and you're right, perhaps writing is the best way to truly capture that without reducing the pain. I will come back to you, Musa, because there are questions that are posed by followers of the LEAD initiative on social media, and I will definitely have more chance to develop that further if you'd like. But I will build upon what you said and go back to Jiyar, who is in one of those Western countries, who was living there, and he did mention a little bit some of the challenges and some of this racism. But Jiyar, if you can tell us more or develop more the impact of setting this false or inaccurate idea that Musa was talking about on your life, and how Yaksani is trying to challenge that, or if there were any challenges even in founding the organization. What role do you try to play to contextualize more? I know you talked a lot about the context, especially the political and the social. So if you can turn on your camera and the microphone, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Emma. Well, an introduction to Yaksani would be more appropriately to describe it as a media network. And what we do is we actually raise the voices of the Kurdish queer community. And we focus mainly on the regions which speak the Sorani dialect of the Kurdish language. And what we do is we fact check information. For example, we just found out there's a book, anti-gay book, being published by a religiously affiliated publisher. And what we will do then, we will buy the book, as much as we hate to give them business, but we have to see the contents. And then we review those contents and publish it on our website. And we are, for example, planning to host podcasts, and we post scientific articles. We just give like a scientific view into this topic, because as we know that gender identity and sexuality, they are scientific topics and they should be approached in scientifically, but we should not have, I think, in my personal opinion, we should not have religious interpretations to these topics, because it's just like you cannot solve the issue with religion. And yeah, that's what Yaksani does. And for the asylum process, for me, for what I faced, the first day I was, actually the third day I was dealing with the alien police, and that was when they were checking our bags and everything. They joked about if I had any bombs in the bags, and I was stunned. You know, we were in the room where they would take your fingerprints and everything to proceed with the process, and I was just silent, because I did not expect that. You know, that's one of the first things that I would hear from these people. And then the COA, which is the main organization providing housing in the Netherlands, some of their staff can be at times very, very rude, and also they're very known to be acting like there's no issues inside the camps, when in fact there is a lot of issues, especially facing non-binary LGBT people. They put everyone in the same camp in Ter Apel, another city towards the northern borders of the Netherlands. And one of my friends that I made in the camp was raped behind the same building we were staying in. And he was moved, obviously, only after this incident happened, when he was warning them the entire time that he was there, that he was not comfortable there, and that he wants to be moved somewhere else. But they did not listen until something bad happened. And another instance was for me at 12 a.m. one night. Our dorm was attacked by a man, knocking very loudly, almost breaking the door, demanding that we open the door. And it was a scary experience for everyone in the place. And I recorded it and I posted on TikTok, because I knew that was the only way to pressure them into taking action. And the video ended up taking off and reached people from LGBT Asylum Support, which is an organization here. And they, believe it or not, they are banned from entering the camps, because they're criticizing the process, the IND, the COA, so they are not allowed inside. And the only way that they get information is through people like us. And I have been documenting everything since I've been here. A lot of unpleasant things happened, but also it was a journey of self-discovery and reflection as well at the same time. And while indeed it's not paradise, I feel like the reason that LGBT people leave their countries to find a glimpse of hope elsewhere, where they feel safer and feel farther away from harm that they face at their homes. And I think that the conditions in Iraq are proof of that kind of violence that the community faces. And but the solution is not that to migrate. The solution is to treat the root problems. And if European countries, for example, they're so afraid, the EU is so afraid of migration, we are seeing what's happening at the borders of Poland and Belarus, where they're deporting refugees back and forth. If they're so afraid, then maybe we should just not. We should try to fix the root problems that make these people leave their homes, oftentimes financial, and a lot of the times due to sexuality and their gender, and that they're not accepted and there's no education. Like, we could do a lot of things. We could start from education. We could start from the elementary schools. Believe it or not, we have in the entire curriculum I studied for 12 years, we had only one page that studied the human sexuality. Only one page in the entire curriculum, and that's a problem.
You know, Jiyar, it's extremely important what you're mentioning, and this perhaps it would be interesting to remind the viewers who are watching us that the previous saloons have discussed profoundly the impact of societal, religious, and cultural norms on defending such rights and how they can impact defenders themselves, but also the change that Jiyar is talking about, which is, I don't want to say preventive of the harm that the LGBTQI plus community faces, but at least it removes the reasons that lead to like immediate asylum seeking, despite the negative aspect of being a refugee. At least there is more choice, and you're not afraid for your life, which so opening up spaces for improvement. And this takes me, Jiyar, I will come back to you and we can explore this more. But Musa, let me come back to you and talk more about writing is definitely a tool that you are using, but what kind of change do you think is possible now that you are pushing for through your writing, or that can be obviously sustained through other efforts? And what digital tools can be used to push for this kind of change? Because the digital world has caused harm for members of the community, as Jiyar and yourself mentioned, but can also be an important tool to disseminate more in-depth analysis and the truth about what is happening. So if the floor is yours.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I think it's very important. I think the digital platforms gave us the tools to criticize the systems, to shed lights on the things that specifically the alternative media platforms. It's very interesting how people are going to the alternative media platforms to see the truth, to see the things that they can't find in the mainstream media platforms. These stories from people who are part of the communities, not people outsiders who journalists, they just want to make money, so they go to have more views about through telling the stories and taking the voices of the marginalized people, refugees, queer people, poor people, black people, I don't know. So I think positionality is one of the things that I want to share awareness through my work. And working, as I told you before, working with refugees and with people who are in diaspora and activists and queer people who are in the region. And even when I told you at the beginning, I have a problem with living in the Middle East and North Africa is hard for queer people, but it's not impossible. It depends on the privileges of the person. And I think when the media portray it as a hell and impossible to live here, they delete us, they delete our work here, they delete our struggle here, which is very bad. And I think one of the things that I want to share awareness about is also that these governments using the Western governments that supporting the local dictatorships, using this as a political card to win in the elections when they say we respect the refugees, we respect LGBT people. It's lies. If they respect the human rights, how they have trade weapons with the dictatorships of the region that we are getting killed by at the end of the day. In 2021, the German government signed a weapons. It is one of the 5 top weapons dealers of the world and selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, with billions and billions. I can't find the number right now, but and also so many Sweden is selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, and many Europeans, which is like a homophobic authority and government. And a dictatorship.
Absolutely. And Musa, I think you reminded us that, yes, talking about LGBTQI plus communities and their needs does not mean we are cornering them or boxing them in a context that is separate or in a vacuum from the rest of the political context. In fact,
Exactly.
we need to deal with the issue through the real broad political and social lens, because it's only a result of the rest of the policies. Jiyar, I'll come back to you on to build on what Musa is saying, and he's more towards sharing the truth in a sense, or like more, or the reality in a broader and more real or concrete angle. So let me ask you this: do you think that raising the awareness about the violence that is facing LGBTQI plus communities, whether in the MENA region or in countries where there are refugees from the MENA region who belong to the LGBTQI plus communities or identify as such, do you think that it could help change anything, like change the mentalities and result in a change in policy, or is that just something that we keep on telling ourselves? Like, how can this change by raising awareness?
Absolutely. I'm a strong supporter of public awareness on this issue, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who are doing the violence. So if they are educated and actually know what's happening, what's sexuality, what's gender, then we will not face these issues as much. Yes, there will always be a portion of society where there will be deeply homophobic or commit crimes based on sexuality against people. But what matters is that the majority of the people are actually aware enough that they do not oppose simply the existence or the person being alive. And I think to continue what my friend Musa said, while it's true in some parts of the Middle East, it could differ, that you could live there, but what quality of livelihood would you have? For example, in Iraq, in the Kurdistan region, in my city, Suleimania, where I come from, people who are single are not allowed to rent, because they come up with the excuse that there are families who are neighbors, and that they're not comfortable with a single person being there and having rented a home, because they will bring back people and have sex and blah blah, all of this stuff that they just think about. And so for me, as an openly gay person that was an activist in the region, it was impossible for me to get housing at all, because not only was I single, they knew that I was a gay person, which is deeply stigmatized. And I had a problem in that aspect. And a lot of people who are also gay face the same issue. They are forced to get married against their will to a woman only to have a roof over their heads, and so they are safe, and their family will not harm them. So I think that a lot of the time it really depends on the context and the region as well, if an LGBT person could happily live there or not. But what matters to me is that not only living, not only being able to stay alive, but living with dignity and respect, and having feeling the entitlement to raise your voice if there's a crime committed against you, and not just staying low in order to protect yourself.
And perhaps with your organization and staying connected to the reality in the Kurdish region, but also having, let's say, a margin of not only hoping to stay alive, but envisioning a better life. You are trying to reconcile both, perhaps, which is staying alive but leading a dignified life. Is there anything, and this could be the ending, if you'd like, is there any effort that you are involved in or could envision in the future to improve the situation of refugees, especially from the LGBTQI plus communities coming from the MENA region to countries like the Netherlands or more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will take collective action from different humanitarian organizations in the EU. For me, I am doing my part. I am reporting the conditions inside the camp, and then send these reports to the organizations who are responsible to monitor and study what's happening inside the camps. So I think, for example, this is one way I could help as a person. And I believe that other LGBT asylum seekers could do the same. And I really hope that humanitarian CSOs will be actually treating this as an issue. LGBT people in camps and in the asylum process are oftentimes mistreated.
Thank you, Jiyar. And the whole point of an event like this is also to shed light on issues that perhaps are not within the radar of NGOs or people who are interested in individual rights in general. So to give insight from people who have experienced this as refugees in MENA regions or in or asylum seekers in the MENA region or in other countries outside of the region. Unfortunately, our time is up. The discussion is definitely not over. I think we've only touched upon certain aspects and certain ideas that should be further explored. I want to thank my guests today, which is Musa Al-shadeedi, who joins us from Amman. He's from Iraq. Jiyar Ali, who's joining us from the Netherlands, but he's Kurdish, also from Iraq. And also the partners who joined us with their experiences, Noor Dawadi from Tunisia and You Badari from Morocco. This is the end of today's third Digital Saloon. Please feel free to join us for the next Digital Saloon, which will focus on women entrepreneurship, challenges in the MENA region, and success stories. Feel free to leave us questions or suggestions for future topics. I am Chaima Bouhlel, and I thank you all for joining us, and please stay tuned for the next event.
Hi, I'm Musa Ayari, CEO of MENA of the LEAD Initiative.
And I'm Jörg Schäfer, founder and CEO Europe. Together,
we thank you for watching the Saloon
and want to ask you to check out our YouTube channel and our website.
Stay tuned and do not hesitate to reach out to us.